tree. So this is how easy it is, okay? That's the start of a tree trunk. Now, if you're going to paint a tree and you want bark, what you don't want to do is spend hours, painting bark. Oh, and just as a quick demo, this is not like my normal painting. For these trees, it's quite a lot of oil. That's a lump of paint that's splashed. There's a few more there. That's how runny it needs to be. But also the tree, I think, should have a bit of an interesting shape. Now, I know this is just a mark on a board at the moment, but isn't that more interesting than straight up? Much more interesting. As soon as you put a slight swing in something, you get movement. Well, let's have a branch there. You see how the brush is actually making the texture of the bark. Don't really have to do much. Although I think I'll keep that quite thick there, so that we've got a nice curl that goes right down the whole picture. And of course, I'll be doing the really difficult bit at the bottom. It'll take hours to do the bottom, where the thing actually connects to the planet. Now, I deliberately used this board today. This is you see that took forever to do that. You see these pale lines here. I don't know whether you can see that. I mean, zoom. I'm going to do a bit of zooming in and a bit of zooming back. So I'll need one of the co-hosts just to let me know if I start talking about something you can't see. But if I just lock the camera there, you may see these pale lines like that. And here, this bit of board, I had to actually order this on Amazon. There was a board shortage, and a whole load of sheets came, and they've got flaws in them. So I thought, well, no, I don't mind that, because if I do a tree, I can use these flaws in the wood, because it'll just add to the texture. Okay, so if you want to do this sort of tree, you've got to do exactly what I'm doing here, at roughly the same sort of speed. Because the way that you exaggerate the movements of the brush gets feeling into the picture. I think we have to have, let's try for something a little bit tricky now, because I don't know whether you've frozen. I'm going to try turning my screen around. So even though I don't know if you've frozen, but if someone could just say whether you can still hear everything and everything
yes,
good.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay. So this is all made from 3 colors. Let's have an extra bit of brown just there. So we sort of added a sort of red stain up the middle, and that sort of starts to work when you put paper to it. So even though it's there, I don't know how clear. Yeah, you can see a bit of red there, but when I wipe it, it'll sort of exaggerate it a bit. You get the feeling of the redness. And this is what's doing the work. It's nothing to do with whether I can draw or paint. The paper is the thing that's making the texture, because this is predominantly a texture picture. All relies on this. See, suddenly it turns into wood. And I haven't spent hours fiddling with it. Just check, have I got a reflection on? No. Right, so the thing, if you're going to do a tree like this, is you know, this kind of thing, it's got to have that little bit of exposed wood. So if I just do this next to the bark here, we just sort of, let's say it's that sort of shape. I'm just digging my nail in and giving it a bit of pressure. So there we are. There's a bit of tree with no bark. It's lost its bark. Have a little highlight there. As soon as you put highlights in, the eye starts to get excited. I can't help but look. So you can guarantee people will go where you have the contrast. Let's have a few more branches. So same brush. Oh, and of course, I've got a gazillion of these things. Q-tips. So they're great for the, I use the word loosely, the detail. In other words, just the odd little bit of something that you might want to put into the wood, like so. There we are. Piece of cake. So let's get some more branches going. So I'm sort of using the Payne's grey and the red ochre and the sap green in equal measure now. So it's a greeny grey browny colour. And I think we should have some kind of branch that comes not from the side of the tree. See, that's the thing that people do that is probably not a good idea. Just move that up a little bit. What you want to make a tree look good, you've got to have the odd branch that comes out from here and then turns away. And people think, oh, that's a really difficult bit. Susan Kirk, I saw your message. Can Stuart show the palette? Yeah, actually, I will. It's just that. So you're not missing much. It's just that brown splodgy mess that you see in the middle of the screen there. There we go. And Madam is still asleep. Okay, let's get back to that. I think you can probably see most of that. I can't see my screen, but I'm guessing. Yeah, I was saying some branches need to come from this side of the tree. They don't always come from this side and this side. So that's when it starts to get a little bit, what's the word? It's not difficult, it's just different. Think of it that way. Okay, so I'm going to bring this branch down here. So it's starting there and traveling up that way. So it's slightly more to the front of the tree. And it's literally just what I just did. I just added light here. So let's have a little light channel going down there just to sort of enhance it a bit. Right, so that branch suddenly is now coming around this way a bit. And I'm put another one here. Let's have one that comes from there, quite a big one. Okay, now you don't want to just go up like that. What you want is to get movement in something. Do a few twisty sort of twists and turns, I suppose. There we go. And we'll bring that branch from this point. Take the bend of the tree further in. Bit of light across there, and then put a bit of darkness behind it or next to it. So this is Payne's grey mostly anyway. I haven't cleaned I haven't even wiped the brush yet, but let's just put a bit of dark there. So you see what I mean? This is suddenly coming out of the tree here rather than being what I call a Y, trees and branches that make the letter Y all over the place. Really quite boring. Everyone does it, and you have to start somewhere. But eventually, if you paint enough of these trees, you start to think, well, let's test myself a bit. I mean, I could put a branch here. Yeah, when you paint enough of these trees, if you get into it, I mean, it's very, very satisfying thing to do. But you'll start to sort of test yourself a bit, just to get more of a feeling of form into it. And it's all down to lights and darks. You know, this bit of light here, it's obvious that this is in front of that. It can't be behind it. So in fact, I can bring it forward a little bit more with a tiny bit more light just there. Now I've got a dark bit here. I don't want it to go into complete darkness. You know, it's got to have, even the darkest part of the painting should have a little bit of light in it. That gives you depth. Okay, so this looks like an upside down armpit, but it not only comes towards you here, it goes into a shadow, then it comes forward a bit, then it goes into another shadow. So you start to get more form in your picture. Now then, let's see what we're going to do here. So underneath this tree, so we've got light hitting this top edge. So what's the light going to be doing around there? Well, there may be a little bit of light on this edge here. Let's take that up like so for now. Move the camera a bit. Okay, so now I want to bring this part of the tree in front of this part. So if I lighten down there, you see the whole branch moves this way, and I can bring it forward even more just by getting a bit more Payne's grey and just sort of putting a little bit just here. And in fact, I'm going to do that just to give that a slightly harder edge just underneath. There we are. We're starting to build up quite an interesting tree. Let's put a, you know, they get like a sort of carbuncle type thing sometimes on a tree, you know, where there's a bulge where a branch didn't quite make it in the past. And that will probably have a dappled look to it. So remember that picture that I sent you? If you look at it, all that detail that was in the surface texture, it's just that. Just twist the paper a bit, and it starts to talk to you. I'll just get some of the paint off my hand. I'm going to zoom in a bit on that area. So as you can see, this is not meant to sound sarcastic. I know it does sound a little bit sarcastic, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to hopefully put a bit of a smile on your face so that you realize, you know, how easy it is. Amazing amount of detail in this painting. I mean, you know, imagine it. If you had a small brush, imagine doing this with a tiny tickly little brush, all these different textures, take you forever. Whereas this way, it's just a few dabs. In fact, some of this edge here, think about trees. And some people don't appreciate it until they've actually ridden into one on a bicycle, which I did several times when I was a kid, how rough the edges are. So there's a sort of slightly bumpy edge there. And the other thing that you might get, well, you will get, the odd thin branch. Let's put a thin branch or two in. Just pull that over that way a bit. There. So, the other thing, notice is how the tree connects to the ground. Okay. Now you can do this thing where people have roots all over the place, but they always look contrived. And actually, by adding loads of exposed roots, you're making life quite hard for yourself. What you want to do is suggest a root. So here's a bit of light wood here. Just a suggestion of some kind of root structure. You don't have to go root crazy, and it's very tempting. But you know, just the odd suggestion of something like that is all you need to say. Think of it this way: in a room full of shouting people, if you whisper, people often stop shouting so they can hear what you're saying. So it's the same thing here. Just whisper the effects that you want. Just make sure you can actually see everything that I'm doing here. Which side of it? Whoops. Let's go that side. I think that's in focus. Yeah. So here, let's say we got this shape coming down here that could turn into a bit of a root coming down there, like so. Quite nice. But, you know, you don't need to do much. What's actually happening down the bottom there, without really trying, frankly, just by slapping the paint on, you've got sort of a muddy bit of land. And I do like a bit of mud. So what can we do with the land? We could say, let's have something catching the light down here, maybe there. A few, I don't know, it could be rocks, it could be, who knows. If I just solidify this line, not completely, you can leave it slightly hairy, going back a bit. Okay, right. The edges either side, at the moment there's nothing growing over there, but we probably want something. So here's one approach, and that is just that. That's fascinated by that sound. Okay, so that's one side. Let's put a bit over here, just the odd. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm suggesting stuff. Rather than screaming it in your face, just suggesting. Now, this is the bit you might like. Piece of paper, just let it sort of, you know, do its thing. Just sort of drag it up and down a few times. Reasonably effective. Same over there. Okay. All those blades of grass. Took ages. Okay, so that's some grass. Another piece of paper. Okay, and in fact, I'm going to zoom in. It's very off-putting, this, because, as I said, the picture in my screen is minuscule. I hope you're seeing a nice big version of that side of the tree. I think you are. Yeah, good. Okay. Right, so piece of paper made into a spiky thing. And all I'm going to do with that is to, I mean, I could do the whippy thing, you know, where I beat the heck out of it. But you can also do this, where you just drag upwards carefully. Well, reasonably carefully. You don't have to be, you know, it's not a delicate operation. Okay, so there's a few extra thick bits of twiggery. Let's go to the other side. So there's that there. Now, one thing you may notice, okay, how do you get movement in a painting? Well, what I did to make that grass inadvertently put in movement. It put wind blowing the grass that way, because obviously everything's having a bit of a lean in that direction. So when I do this, I'm going to make them also lean. You won't see much on this until I photograph it, I guess, but at the end, there we are. There's a nice bit of extra bit of movement there. And with this, if I dip that in the paint, and I just sort of touch a few bits in the sky, because that's sky. Okay, imagine we're at the top of a hill. This is how I get round having to paint much of a background. So this is on the crest of a small hill. So the white sky is all you're going to see. You're not going to see any other trees. Okay, I think we've got everything in there almost. Okay. Now, camera's moving on its own here. Go back. Okay, so yeah, this piece of paper, if I dip it in the paint, as I said, it's reasonably oily, and just touch it in the sky in a few places. A bit of undrawn detail. In other words, these are moving in the wind, and they're moving so fast, it's so windy, you don't actually see each individual blade of shrubbery or weedery or whatever it is. You just see the important bits. In other words, the bit that suggests a bit of movement. Right, so what should we do now? Let's have a few breaks in this. Head off in that direction there. And this sort of thing now, I'm at the phase where I'm just sort of tickling it, trying to give the appearance of a little bit of detail. So let's just have a few streaks of bark up and down here. Now, if I take one of these lines off slightly, that could be the beginning of a twig, because it's got to have the odd twig. Can't have a twigless tree. So a twig that looks dark against light will look light when it's against dark. That's just the way it goes. So that's no good. Let's put another one. So if I make another piece of paper, I don't know how much of that, I think you can see it reasonably well. As this hint of a twig comes down here, as it goes against the darkness of the tree, it'll have a light effect. So let's have that just sort of growing out of a bit of a nodule there. Okay, so that's in front of the tree. Let's go up to the top a little bit more. I'm just going to put in a few extra big branches. Okay, not massively big, just sort of, just to give it a bit more presence. So we'll take this one right off the top. And it just so happens that this branch is the width of the brush. Okay. Now, beware when you paint trees, I always say this, don't make the branches get too thin too quickly. If you're in any kind of doubt about what I mean, go out and sit and look at a tree. And you'll see that most trees are roughly the same thickness for most of the tree, all the way up. They hardly change. It's only the last bit as it breaks into twigs, smaller branches, that it changes. That's just the way trees are. They have to be, because it's a terrific weight they've got to hold up. So don't, as I said, don't go too thin too quickly. So let's have, let me just have a little think here. So we've got this branch here. I will put in some thinner branches with a rigger in a minute, but not quite yet. Okay, so what have I got there? I've got this light area here. This branch here definitely needs a bit more texture in it. So if I just zoom in on that branch, okay, I think that's going to be about the right position. Yeah. Okay, so it's already got texture. There's all kinds of interesting textures going on in there. But let's just sort of enhance them a bit. Let's just put that on there and see what that does. Now, isn't that interesting? That to me tells me that the branch is going away, it's catching the light, and it's dark, and it's coming back towards us. So imagine this painted, say, 4 times the size, in a nice big sympathetically colored frame, similar sort of color to the tree. It would be the sort of thing that some rich person who owns a sort of loft type warehousey apartment in New York, and they got a big wall space to cover. I'm thinking to myself, maybe I should specialize in these trees for a while and just turn out as many as I can. You never know; it could be a market. But anyway, who knows? It may, to live in a sort of bit of a concrete jungle and to have a nice realistic wood painting could be quite therapeutic also. Don't know. It's just an idea. But yeah, I like doing these trees. And I was saying to William earlier, before everyone else arrived, the tree that I've sent you, the photograph, it's one of the few paintings that I've actually got attached to. And even though I sold it, I'm glad I sold it, but I was quite sorry to see it go because I just like them. And you can just sort of, do what I'm doing now, just sort of gradually build up picture. All I'm doing is just dabbing. There's no big drawing skill needed here. I think the thing to remember, one of the main things to remember about this sort of picture, I'm going to just sort of remind you of that. If I zoom back and adjust slightly, is to not just paint a straight, static tree. Put a bend in it. See, it's got a curl top to bottom. There's a slight bend, bit of a theatrical bend, and texture. It's just something you can gradually work on. Just going to go back to the top. Right. So compositionally, I'm just looking at it on my screen because I get to see it a long way away. That it needs to be slightly thicker there. Definitely see that. I think you saw it too. Good. I'll continue down this side in a minute, but I want to do something up here first. So up here, what should we do? We've got this sort of bit where the bark has sort of peeled away. Don't want it to look quite so stark. And as usual, when you see the photograph at the end, you'll see a difference. It's definitely going to be a difference between this and what you're seeing. Everything on my screen looks oversimplified, and it's actually looking complex, which is what I want. Okay, let's have another one there, I think. Now that could be behind the trunk. So there it is behind it. Okay, that's good. That's what I want. The edges are very furry on that. That's also something I want. But I think we'll have, without getting in the way, I think we'll have a branch that comes off here. And then it's going to curl around, bit of a gap, and it's going to come in front, like so. And it's almost doing that automatically. But of course, it'll be more obvious when I add a bit of light there and pull a little bit of light across here. There we are. So it's coming around in front and then going off. Very, very simple to do. It's just getting your lights and darks in the right place. Let's just enhance that a little bit there where it joins on to the tree. You see, and there's no fuss. It's literally dab, 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 stop. As soon as you see the result that you want, don't over dab. And also, this bit of light brings this branch in front of us, in front of that other branch. But if I add a bit of light over there, it does it even more. Okay, so I won't do much more to that one. Let's add. What should we do? Right, so we've got a big gap here. I think we should definitely have. Yeah, okay. I think we could have one that just comes off the side, that just goes off there. Something like that. Now, when I pause and I say, "Oh, compositionally, I need to do this," it's because of what I was saying earlier. Interesting. We've got a green drip there. That's going to look quite nice. Even we got this lump on the tree down here, and even though we've got this lump, and I know a tree can be like that, I still have this feeling that I need to thicken it over that way, just a little bit more. Okay, now by doing that, it reinforces the swing that way. It's quite interesting, very subtle. Right, this green bit here, I'm just going to sort of smudge that a bit, break it up. There we are. Oh, look, yes, bit of lichen on the tree there. I'm liking that. And down here, I think might pull that across there just a tiny amount. Right, so now I'm going to get a load of oil, same color as everything else. Isn't it amazing what you can do with 3 colors? And 3 very dull colors, actually, if you think about it. You know, these are not vibrant colors. So what I'm relying on here for the effect is the contrasts. Right, so what should we do? We got this thing up here. Let's just strengthen that. Okay. Up here, yeah, I just took it off the top. We got that dark spiky thing in there, which could either be another twig or it can be a nothing. And to make it a nothing, all you do is that. There we are. So what could have been thought of as an error is gone. Right, so a compositional thing, you see this branch is quite thick. Now, unless I make it look as though it's coming towards us at the top, which could work, right, but I don't want to. I just want to sort of thicken the bottom part just a little bit there. And keep in your head, whenever you do trees like this, the tree is a big, strong thing. Keep that feeling of strength going as long as you can. Don't have any bits that make you think, oh, it looks a bit weak. It's got to be, you know, it's got to have this inner strength, which is what I'm trying to do here. Let's just pull that to there, I think. Okay, that's good. Down here, we could probably have, if I can use this brush, it might work. If I keep it in line, we can do that quite well, I think. Okay, so we've got a branch going off that way. I want to do a few thickish twigs like this before I do any small twigs. So would there be one there? There might, but there could be. Now, you see this branch and this branch. I've got that. I wouldn't necessarily do the same thing there because that's a repeat, and you don't want to do that. So any branch coming out underneath is going to go up rather than down. If I even bother, I think I will because then you can just see how I'm using the brush. So I'm keeping all the bristles in line to make it as thin as possible. Interesting. Okay, there we go. And in fact, I might bring that one over that way. Just a touch. Yep, good. Now, so we got that big branch, that big branch. I think it needs something over there, maybe hanging off that way. So how are we going to do this? I think we should just have it. Why not? Let's just make absolutely sure you can see what I'm going to do. Good. So I think we should have something that comes from about that point. like so. Why not? So let's connect that to the tree. See, suddenly it's not a brush mark anymore. It's actually a tree. It's actually a branch. It's a branch mark. But just to sort of repeat a couple of things, as you put the branches in, don't just go doink, doink. Do a few little jiggly movements as you go along. Emphasize the character of a tree. Okay, now I want to put that branch, I think the other side. We've got one in front here. This one should be coming from the other side. So very simply, how to do that is this. Just apply a bit of light there. That's all it takes. Suddenly that, now, even though it's darker, is the other side. And what should we do to it now? But I'm going to make that even more obvious, I think, just a couple of places. It doesn't have to be like a continuous line. In fact, that's the worst thing that you can do. So yeah, just sort of, a really bright bit there, maybe. Maybe a bright bit just down here, I suppose. Whoops, sorry about that. There we are. So there's a branch in the background. Keep it dark here, but as it moves off the painting, let's get a bit of texture into it. There we go. That's locked. Okay. So let's get it to go away from us. This is obviously the bit that's closest to us. As it moves across that way, add a bit of light to it. And then it will start to actually travel away. Now, if I leave that dark bit there and this light bit here and this dark bit there, it goes away along and then close to us again. In other words, it's got a bend in it. I don't want it to do that. I want it to keep going away. I'll take away that extra dark bit there. Hopefully that's moving away more. That's slightly better, I think. Okay, so let's now have a intermediate branch coming off that. Have one there. Not as wobbly as I wanted it to be, but it's okay. And from my memory, this with this kind of branch, you'll often get one that's hanging off down that way. Like so. That's got a nice branchiness about it. And let's do a bit of riggering. I've actually got some new riggers. Oh, twiggery. Now this is this technique. I like this technique because it's so, I don't know, it has a sort of vibrancy. Let's go over, well, no, let's stay there. I'll add a few twigs in that general area. So I think you're seeing most of it. Hang on, I've got to just that way. Okay, right, so we've got this branch going off up here. We've got one coming down there. Now, the vibrant twig thing, it's not done in one movement. If you do it in one motion, it'll look, believe me, amateurish. What you need to do is like there, stop, move, stop, move. Darn, you missed that. I'm going to show you again. Okay, same sort of thing. So I did that one there. So I'll do one that's coming across this way. So it's like this. Move, stop, make a speck, almost like a dot, move again, move again. Quite often twigs have sudden changes of direction. Now you can do a softer change of direction. Let's have one that's well, it's coming off that. So you can have one that is just basically doesn't have a stop in it, but always get thinner. If you don't get thinner at the right pace, it just looks naff. So let's have one that comes off. I'm going to change something before I get too engrossed in that area. I just want to add a bit of light to that twig there, so it's sort of connected. So that's all it takes, just a touch. And then let's bring one from there. Stop, bend. Well, I'm changing the pressure that way, okay? Now, if you find yourself done, this is a useful trick. So you've done this twig, which has a nice clean line, and you come off too soon, which I did. What you don't want to do is try and continue where you left off, right? Just let it be. Go back and then do something else. And it'll look fresher. Let's have one there. It just disappears off the edge. Quite thin. I think you're seeing it. Hopefully. Hope so anyway. Up here, we got that twig thing going off up there. Let's zoom in on that a bit. Okay, so this one has got lights in it where there's no paint. That's okay. You know, you get bits of dry, rottenish looking wood. Quite acceptable. Before I do any twigs, I just want to put a bump or two just there because it just needs it. Don't know what they are, but they're bumps. Okay, so the top of this, what you can do, you can work from the extreme edge back to its root, so to speak, depending on what gravity is doing. Now, gravity is very important when you're doing things like this. I could start here and I could work upwards. Now, that is always harder than starting at the top and working down. I'll just show you that because I like to use gravity. It's like when you draw a circle, you use your elbow as a compass, you know, and a lock, like so. But I could start up here and join it down there. Much easier than going off that way. Let's see, what should we do down here? Let's have one that just goes off there and doesn't particularly do anything. It's just part of the, you know, overall feel of the picture. But you don't have to do all these twigs. You can do some, and then sort of not others. It's almost a Japanese watercolor style when you do this. You know, if you ever watched a Japanese artist or Chinese, when they're doing their very highly stylized images, it's often, you know, lots of twiggy things like that. Great brush. I can't recommend them enough. Riggers are amazing brushes. Let's have a look up there. I haven't frozen. I'm just fiddling with the camera with a brush in my mouth. Right. What should we do? Let's have one that just goes off up that way. If you are doing this, you've got to pick up fresh paint every time. Every time you do a twig, you've got to get more paint. Let's have one that goes off there, disappears behind there, and for some reason comes out over there. You won't really notice it. It's just, as I said, it's all part of building up the patina. There's a nodule there with a twig that comes out of it. So let's see, let's just complicate this edge a bit. Have one there. Let's thicken the bottom of that and then take one off that way. So you can just do this, it can take hours, this bit. It can take longer putting the twigs in than actually painting the main guts of the picture. Okay, so down here, I just added those two. So we've got this twig growing off the trunk here. Maybe I could strengthen that a little bit. So let's just do it and just sort of put in a few lines. So, and sometimes you could get a whole cluster of twigs. So for instance, this here, got this little branchy thing there, and that could have one that goes off that way. So now I started, and I don't want to muck up. It's only a tiny little line, but I don't want to add to it because I moved off too quickly. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just sort of do a few from the opposite direction, and then one back, and then let's have another one that comes down here, like so. So you've got a bit of a, you know, a rush of twigs there. And let's have one that goes that way, disappears behind the tree. Again, it's one of those things where I, you know, because I'm old and wobbly, I came off too soon there. So I'm actually going to attempt to join that up there. There we go. There's a gap in the middle, but that's what's called undrawn detail. That simplifies that problem. Let's have, let's see, what should we do down there? I think, right, we've got a twig here. Let's make that twig into something. It's better. There we go. And we could also add a few more blades of grass in here, just the odd one or two that's poking up. Okay, so we've got our nice windswept grassy bit. Down there. Whoops, there we go. Let's have another one or two that just sort of appear. And of course, sometimes they go sideways. Don't forget the sideways ones, very important. Not all grass goes the same way. And then, down the middle of the trunk, let's see what we can do with the rigger in the actual trunk of the tree. Okay, right, so let's just fiddle and see what happens and look at it later and see whether it was a good idea. Let's have a couple of shapes that just fall down the middle there. Let's see. Oh, yes, I think there. Let's have an edge to the bark here. Just occasionally it can be slightly enhanced. I don't want to get into detail because there's actually, you know, I know it sounds silly, but there's no detail in this painting. What you're seeing is you're imagining things. Shape there, why not? Just for the heck of it, eh? Why not? Why not have a mushroom or two? Let's have some mushrooms. Okay, I'll put it over there. This is just, yeah, well, I suppose you could call it a little bit of eye candy. It's just a little something thrown in just to see whether people notice it. Okay, so what does a mushroom look like? Or toadstool, or whatever. Basically a sort of umbrella, isn't it? So if you're going to do an umbrella, they're only going to be little tiny things. Let's have this. So there's the top of one there. Go even closer. Right, so there's one. There's another one. And why not have one here? And then the stem. They're not going to be detailed mushrooms or toadstools, just hints. Hint of toadstool. Have another one or two. Right, this is one of those little toadstools that's got a long stem. In fact, what could be quite cute with this, I won't do it while it's wet, but you imagine, okay, we've got that one lone toadstool over on the right there. Check my screen. Yep, good. Wouldn't that be cute if all this was all just done in this color, but these had red tops, or one of them had red tops and white spots? That could be quite interesting. There we are. Or even some poppies or something. So I think what I'm going to do next, and then I'll be stopping soon, is a little bit more in the foreground. Okay, now what should we do down there? Let's just sort of texture it up a bit, I think, and maybe get a bit more red into it. You don't have to. It's just, you know, just a whim thing, really. So I've got some light bits. I'll keep some of them. Just add dark edges to a few. And so there's a bit of solid down the bottom for me to work into. It's always good to have a bit of dark to work into. Okay, so there we are. Goes right down the edge of the painting. So these dark bits now bring this closer to us. One of those things that just happens. Dark does tend to come into the foreground. Okay, so we've got it that there. Let's have a few of these just for the heck of it. Okay, it's got that nice sort of muddy, dirty look. My goodness, I must have been a nightmare of a child for my parents. I did like mud, I'd say. Okay, so there's just a few textures, and then just to finish it off, a few dabs of this. And then before I sit down, I'll take a photo with my other camera so you can get the finished view. I just want to do a little bit of fiddling around up there. Right, so we've got this dark bit here. I think it's a little bit too dark, so I'm just going to get some of that in it. Right, so I think we want a little bit of light just there. And what else do I want? Okay, this needs to sort of blend into that a bit more. Looking quite wooden, which of course is always important when you're painting a tree, I suppose. There we are. Right, I might stop there. Still got this green streak. I don't, oh no, you can't see it. This green streak there. Interesting, that might show up on the photograph a little bit too much. I'm going to just mush it up a bit and then just redo that area. But leave some of that green in, it won't hurt. But I just wanted to sort of break it down a bit. So, okay, so I've made that dramatic bit of wiping there. So this is how easy it is to fix in case you ever get into doing something like this and you think, oh, am I going to get rid of that green? There we go. Just break stuff down, you know, push push the brush sideways occasionally to get that. See, suddenly we got a light streak because I cut through the paint. If I use just this flat and slow, I will build paint up like that. See that dark bit? And if I want to get some light into it, I can either use paper or just move the brush slightly differently. So it's just literally cutting through the paint. It really is that easy. Okay, a little bit of, tiny bit of extra darkness just there. And then scumble the edge a touch, like so. There we go. Right, there's an awful, I keep thinking I should stop, but then I see bits of it and I think there's a bit of a gap there. You see now, it doesn't look bad, but well, it's not bad, but it just, to me, just isn't quite right. And it needs to come across there a bit. Or maybe it's okay. I'll tell you what, I know what I'll do. Let's have a bit of a hole in the tree. Not a hole, a dent. I'm not going to put any owls looking out of holes in trees, but just a little bit of a cut into the bark there. Right, so I'm not going to sit, I'm going to take a photograph straight away and show you what it really looks like. And I have to say, I'm mildly pleased with that.